Carbohydrates provide our body with energy. They can be stored in the liver and muscles as glycogen. Glycogen is an energy reserve for the body. Our body needs different vitamins and minerals to process carbohydrates. In particular, B vitamins, chromium, magnesium, manganese and zinc are useful for this. Unrefined carbohydrates are carbohydrates and food that has not been processed, such as roots, nuts, seeds and fruit. These naturally contain vitamins, minerals, enzymes and amino acids. Refined and sugar-rich products such as bread, pasta, cookies, candy and soft drinks contain nearly no vitamins or minerals, but do require vitamins and minerals in order to be processed. That's how they give us empty calories and exhaust our bodies. Carbohydrates can be found in our food in the form of starch, which can be found in potatoes, roots and grains. Sugar, which are stored in cane sugar, beet sugar, honey, fructose and sucrose. Fiber in whole grain, vegetables and fruit. Carbohydrates are sugars. In your diet, you can distinguish between the number of sugar molecules that comprise the carbohydrates. These are mono, di, and polysaccharides. Since these three types of carbohydrates are absorbed by your body in an entirely different way, we will give you a brief explanation. It is good to know which foods belong to which group of carbohydrates. This way, you can make a healthy and conscious decisions on which foods to eat. Simple sugars are the most basic carbohydrates. We know them as glucose or dextrose, fructose or fruit sugars, or as galactose, which is a component of lactose. After consuming these simple sugars, they enter into the bloodstream very quickly. During a shortage of energy, the body will first use these sugars and then start to burn fat. An overload of sugar leads to larger fat reserves, equaling weight gain. Keeping up a diet like this ultimately leads to the risk of becoming fat or obese, because the fat is not being burnt in your body. Fruit is in the group fructose or fruit sugars. In addition to sugars, fruit also contains vitamins, minerals, water, fiber and enzymes. The fiber in the fruit ensures that the sugars are absorbed at a much slower pace. Because of this, fruit is a good source of energy for you and supplies additional nutrients. The best fruit is unprocessed and grown naturally. The saccharides are comprised of two sugar molecules. Examples are lactose, found in milk. It contains one glucose molecule and one galactose molecule. Sucrose, or cane sugar and beet sugar, containing one fructose molecule and one glucose molecule. Maltose. This consists of two glucose molecules. Maltose is used in, for example, energy drinks, candy, and sometimes in the making of breads. It is important to remember that disaccharides needs to be converted to simple sugars in our body, so they can be absorbed in the lower intestines. They require a more complex digestion process than the simple sugars in fruit. Polysaccharides contain 10 to hundreds of sugars. This is why they are called the compound of complex carbohydrates. These carbohydrates are called complex because they can't immediately absorb by the human body. They require more work from our digestive tract because of their complexity. The body breaks down these complex carbohydrates more slowly than the other forms of carbohydrates. This also addresses the body's fat reserves when your body needs energy. Polysaccharides slowly enters the bloodstream and begins to provide prolonged amount of energy, which is a very good thing. The polysaccharides are found in whole wheat grains, unpolished rice, nuts, seeds, carrots and similar vegetables, and also in grains such as quinoa, kamut, oats and buckwheat. Because the complex carbohydrates are absorbed more slowly into the bloodstream, you don't have a surge in your blood sugar after eating these carbohydrates. When you eat unprocessed grains, they still contain the whole fiber, and fiber causes a slower intake of sugars. When we eat foods containing high amounts of fiber, our body needs to convert them into glucose. Glucose is absorbed by the bloodstream. The pancreas produces insulin, which is a hormone that causes the glucose to absorb into your cells, lowering the blood sugar. Insulin cooperates with glucagon. While insulin lowers the blood glucose, glucagon can increase the blood glucose level by releasing glucose from the glycogen stored in our liver. We store the glucose in our liver and muscles in the form of glycogen. However, once we have stored enough glucose in our bodies, the excess is converted into fatty tissue. In traditional diet ethics, we are taught that it is better to eat starch than simple carbohydrates such as fruit, dextrose, and glucose. We are taught that starch will only partly raise the blood sugar, while simple carbohydrates raise the blood sugar more rapidly. A doctor in natural products dietetics has a different point of view. It tells us that the slow digestion of starch makes sugars available for prolonged periods than after eating simple carbohydrates. This may be so favorable to your systems because this will cause your blood sugar to rise at a much later point in time. You may feel bloated later. It takes longer for your body to realize that you have eaten enough, which then causes you to overeat. The result is, it takes 3 to 4 hours to empty your full stomach, and during this period of time, sugars are continually released into your bloodstream. In addition, the pancreas should only need to be active for a short amount of time to infuse your blood with insulin, while after eating starch, it will have to keep working for longer. After eating fruit, the blood sugar will return to normal more quickly. If it gets too low, your body will either demand more food or will start to release glucose from glycogen, which is stored in the liver. In conclusion, fruit is less stressful on our pancreas. Starch raises blood sugar continually and also causes the pancreas to be operative for a longer period of time. This stress can cause the pancreas to become exhausted, ending up in diabetes. Grains are therefore connected often with diabetes, and it is more than wise to reduce your bread consumption to once per day. Glucose is, as we already know, a fuel for our body. It gives us energy, and our brains in particular cannot function without sugars. They use up about 45% of all carbohydrates we consume. Only 10% goes to our muscles. A diet without carbohydrates is not a good diet at all, and they give us the energy we need. But you must pay close attention to the types of carbohydrates you eat. In our modern society, processed carbohydrates supply the majority of the calories we consume. Because of this, we receive an excess of glucose, and our pancreas needs to produce large amounts of insulin. Insulin stimulates the making and storage of fat. It makes us gain weight. Because we consume too many carbohydrates in today's modern society, an increasing number of people are no longer sensitive to insulin. The pancreas becomes exhausted because it has to get the glucose into our cells. The body doesn't respond as well to insulin anymore, having major consequences to our health, eventually leading to diabetes. Reducing the intake of processed carbohydrates is very important. In particular, bread, pastas, cookies, candies, soft drinks, and even some fruit juices provide us with empty carbohydrates. These products have been so overprocessed that the usual fibers, vitamins, and minerals are lost. This creates a high calorie but otherwise empty carbohydrate, which our body cannot digest well. Looking back at our ancestors, their diets usually contained lots of proteins and fats, few carbohydrates, and certainly little to non-processed carbohydrates. It's curious to think, how would we and our bodies be functioning now if our great-great-great-grandfathers would have eaten the way we do now? bread, potato products, white rice, trail mix or muesli, cookies, candy, soft drink and some fruit juices are often highly processed carbohydrates that, other than being laden with sugars, do not provide us with any nutrients. Fruit juices seem to be very healthy, but when you realize that 1 pint of fruit juice is equal to 10 lumps of sugar, you can imagine how this adds to easy weight gain. It is good to eat processed carbohydrates as little as possible and to look for unprocessed carbohydrates in fruit and vegetables, together with a small amount of whole grains. Let fruit and vegetables form the basis of your diet. Fruit and vegetables give you vitamins, minerals, phytonutrients, enzymes and fiber. These are essential for your body and mind functioning properly. As they say, you can only feel good when your body feels good too.